Hey, fellow resistors, Charlie Angus here. This is an intro to today's show. I had wanted to do a piece on the changing military situation for Canada now that we are up against a border, unguarded border with a country that has been threatening us. The need for us to rethink our place in the global alliances with Donald Trump becoming increasingly menacing towards Canada and the gangster regimes of Vladimir Putin. So I think you're going to find this show today very interesting, but I felt I had to do this intro because we've learned that Poland has now invoked Article 4 of NATO. That's calling on all the NATO allies to be ready to defend Poland's border. This comes after the drone attacks from Vladimir Putin's Russia. These are very, very, very serious times. I think I'm not going to get into the Polish situation today. It's a moving and fluid situation. I believe that this is just more intimidation, more of the fog of war. This is Vladimir Putin trying to rattle the Western allies. This is obviously to undermine Ukraine. It's to intimidate Poland. And we have Donald Trump saying, whoa, here we go, in his public responses, showing that the United States is no longer the trusted ally that is needed at this time to hold the borders on Eastern Europe. I'm very pleased that Prime Minister Mark Carney has spoken strongly of support for Europe. That is really important. But I want you to watch today's show. This was done before Article 4 was invoked, but it does talk about what Canada needs to think about, Canada's relationship to Europe, Canada's decisions about defending ourselves, and Canada's relationship to Maga and the threats we're receiving. So I hope you enjoy this. Well, I don't think you need to enjoy it. I hope you can learn from it. And yes, we are in troubling times, but we're going to get through this, and we're going to stay focused, and we're going to keep kicking at the darkness that's coming around us. Thank you. Hey there, fellow resistors. Charlie Angus here, Meidas Canada Network, and thank you. We are overwhelmed by the incredible messages that we've been receiving. We feel like kids on Christmas morning, our little team, with all the positive feedback we're getting. Here's one. Congratulations from Germany. I'm so glad that Meidas will start a global network. We need it against the neo-Nazis and the far-right parties in Germany and every country in Europe. From the UK, bring on Meidas UK. It can't come soon enough. From Australia, Meidas Canada and then Meidas Down Under. Meidas mates standing with Maple Meidas to defend democracy. Damn right, cousins. We're going to get this thing and we're going to build on it. And from Maga in Portugal, congratulations, Maple Meidas. Thank you. Charlie, this fight is about right versus wrong, good versus evil. This is a world fight for truth and facts against propaganda. Thank you, Maga. That's what we're trying to do here, is to give the information and resist the toxic bots that we're seeing flood our spaces with disinformation. We're getting messages from the Netherlands, Ireland, Latvia, France. Here's one from Phyllis. My father was on the first troop ship leaving Canada for England in 1939. Canada's always stood up for democratic values. Thank you, Charlie, for being a voice for proud Canadians. Thank you, Phyllis. And I think of your father's service, our uncles, our grandfathers, our cousins, the women who served. And they put their lives on the line to defend other people, to restore democracy. And they did it so that this generation of young people would not have to go fight the fascists. That's why we're holding the line on resistance, is to protect this young generation. And we cannot drop our guard. And speaking of that, here's one. I'm a U.S. citizen. I heard you for the first time last spring on Meidas Touch, and I've followed you ever since. You are a true patriot. You hit back with the truth, the facts. You don't mince words. You love your country. We are in a very dark and dangerous period here in the U.S. Our corporate media and the billionaire class are spending millions to keep us ill-informed. Please let your people know that many, many of us are protesting on the streets, writing letters to our politicians to stand and fight. I will resist in every way I can. So will many of my friends. We stand with Canada. God bless Canada. God have mercy on the U.S. Thank you to our followers all across the United States who are on the front lines right now. And we agree with you. We are in a very dark and troubling time. Today I want to talk about the military options Canada has for defending ourselves, because we are now in a new dark age of the gangster oligarchs. You know, I feel sometimes so strange to be in this position, my first avenue into politics, I was 18 years old, was to try and stop a Cold War. When I saw, Ronald Reagan's escalations of the cruise missiles and the Soviets stacking the SS-20s, and we were right on the brink of a nuclear holocaust, and I was just 18, but I, like millions of others, took to the streets because we didn't know what else to do. And that nonviolent resistance stopped the Cold War. It brought down the Berlin Wall. And I remember the huge excitement in 1989 that we had all managed to do this. It seemed like we had a new future. And people talked about how all the money that had been spent on weapons would create a peace dividend that could be spent on building houses, building infrastructure, building a sustainable world. But then we let the neoliberals take us for a sucker's ride of 40 years of underfunding and privatization that's led to the oligarch class and now the Putin gangster regime and Maga in the United States. And so here we are again. I feel like in my 60s, I feel like Cassandra warning and warning that we need to be prepared for this new Cold War because it's a very different Cold War. It's a very dark Cold War because it's unstable, because it's at the whim of the gangsters. So where does Canada fit right now? I'm going to talk today a bit about some of the developments that we're seeing from the federal government in terms of negotiations with Europe and other countries on defense. There's some very interesting, some I think slightly provocative and positive steps, but there are troubling steps. And I'm just going to call them as I seize them, and I look forward to your feedback. Number one, we learned that Canada is now talking about building defense with Finland and Sweden. This is hugely significant. Finland's a country of 5.6 million people that have stood up against the Russians ever since the Winter War of 1939-1940. We know that in Finland, they believe that the defense of their nation is the responsibility of every single citizen. We aren't there yet as a nation, but I think that the Prime Minister could talk bluntly about how we have to build a sense of defense. I think Canadians are ready for that. So this talk with Finland and Sweden is very interesting. I think of it because I've been at the European Security Council meetings, I've been at NATO meetings in Washington and in Brussels, and I'll tell you, when I was at the Brussels meetings after Trump was reelected, I got the distinct impression that no one was going to come and help us. No one was going to save us, despite all the talk about Article 5 and NATO values. But I really felt a kinship meeting with the Baltic states, with Finland, with the delegates from Sweden. They understood the threat because they are on the borders with a gangster regime, and now so is Canada. Speaking of that, Canada, the Prime Minister was just in Ukraine on the Independence Day with President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. That was a very good sign. I thank the Prime Minister for that. Canada's putting another $2 billion into military technology as Trump and Putin try and carve up Ukraine for the gangsters. Some of that apparently is going to be drone technology. I'd say, hey, why aren't we inviting the Ukrainians to Canada to set up drone factories here? That would help us in a big way. But they're talking about military vehicles. Another simple option here, we have lost apparently 49,000 manufacturing jobs. Wouldn't it be great for the Prime Minister to say wartime economy, say for the third line in Oshawa that's down right now at GM? We're going to put that line back to work. We're going to start to build the military vehicles to help our allies in Europe and Ukraine and the Baltic countries and to defend Canada, to build on that. Canada is extending its military mission in Latvia. That's a good sign. We've been very supportive of the Baltic states. And Putin hates us for it. Putin hates our guts, as does Donald Trump. After all, he said that we are the nastiest country he's dealt with. Putin doesn't like us. Trump doesn't like us. And I just want to do a shout out to myself. I'm on Putin's blacklist. I probably didn't really do much to deserve it, but I'm really glad that he recognized me, and I thank him. And I carry it as one of my great honors that I've been blacklisted by Vladimir Putin. And I promise him that I'll do everything to live up to that blacklist. Purchases of submarines. Canada's looking at Korea and Germany. Again, another indication that we're moving away from the U.S. supply chain that we've relied on in the past. I'm concerned about the F-35s. Our European allies get it. Why are we spending this massive amount of money on these planes, especially with their control systems built out of the United States? But Canada's military top brass are still suckers for the F-35. I think we need to rethink that. Again, cheap drones, probably a better investment. But hey, I'm not a military dude, so I don't know. But that's just my thoughts. My big concern here, and this is what I want to get to, is the Golden Dome missile shield. You know, in the spring when Donald Trump was insulting our nation, as Kash Patel from the FBI was claiming hundreds of terrorists were coming over the Canadian border into the United States. I guess they recognized maybe they wore toques or something. As Kristi Noem was saying that the northern border was the number one threat, as they were escalating this language against Canada as a threat. Then Donald Trump announced he was going to build his Golden Missile Defense Scheme. It threw everyone for a loop. And then he announced that Canada was going to be paying for it. We were going to pay $175 billion to be protected by the United States. Yeah, just like Mexico was going to pay for the wall. At the time, people thought it was so out there and so crazy, they didn't give it much credence. And, you know, when I heard the Prime Minister say he was willing to talk about it, I didn't think much about it either. I thought it was just our Prime Minister, placating the bear and trying to focus back on the trade war. But I have a lot of concerns now from what I'm hearing lately, and this is what I want to raise these concerns with you. Okay, first off, the scheme itself. In order to stop an intercontinental ballistic missile with multiple warheads from striking, they travel at 24,000 kilometers an hour. They say it's like having to use a bullet to shoot down a bullet. In order to do that, you have to have they figure 10,000 satellites in the air. The idea that this is going to come in at, say, $400 billion and we're going to pay $175 billion of it is ridiculous. This is a boondoggle in the making. Before I get further into the satellite thing, though, where's the threat coming from? Trump's warning of rogue states. Well, he loves rogue states. I mean, he worships the military regime of North Korea. He's doing whatever he can as a loyal toady of Vladimir Putin. So where is these rogue threats coming from? The rogue threat is coming from Washington. Let's focus on that. Now back to the satellites. So if you're going to put, say, 10,000 satellites and drones in the air to protect American airspace, well, where are they going to be shooting down those missiles? Over Canada, right. So just, a few months ago, Donald Trump was wanting to kick us out of the Five Eyes intelligence network. Just throw Canada out. I mean, imagine that. For what reason? Well, apparently Canada played a role at the Five Eyes of tracking Russian disinformation that was helping Trump win the election, so he hated our guts for that. Then they talked about kicking us out of NORAD. So NORAD, the North American Defense Networks up in the Arctic, that's supposed to be there to protect us from stray missiles, and he wanted to kick us out of that. Now suddenly, he's going to build this missile scheme over Canada, and we're going to pay to be protected. The issue here is allowing satellites and low-orbiting surveillance over our cities, our towns, our infrastructure. In what world is that a good idea with a regime that says they could arbitrarily move our border at any time? That'd be like Vladimir Putin saying to Latvia, hey, I'm going to build a Golden Dome missile scheme and I'm going to put satellites over your cities and towns and I'm going to protect you. They wouldn't be that dumb. So certainly why would Canada be that stupid? Again, like I said, I didn't take this very seriously at first, but then on July 15th, Secretary of Defense Minister David McGuinty went to Colorado to meet American generals about the Golden Dome missile scheme, and he delivered a message that Prime Minister Carney had, quote, removed all restrictions on air and missile defense of Canada, opening the door for the Golden Dome missile scheme. And when asked about it, McGuinty said, quote, the threat environment has drastically changed, and Canada needs to be prepared. By removing outdated restrictions on our air and missile defense policies, Canada is taking another necessary step to strengthen the safety and security of Canadians and the sovereignty of Canada. What the hell are you talking about, David? Yeah, the threat environment has drastically changed. The threat environment has drastically changed from the people that you are now negotiating with. The guy that you will be sitting down to discuss with, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. That is a security threat to Canada. I mean, look at this dude. He's got some pastor, his religious advisor, who posted a video about this new crypto white nationalist state that will become the United States where women won't be allowed to vote. And when that video was made public, you would have thought there had been an outcry. Pete Hegseth reposted this video. A video talking about taking away the right of women to vote. So you think for a second that Donald Trump, in a regime that has people who don't believe women should have the right to vote, is going to respect the sovereignty of a nation like ours that is democratic, that is under the rule of law, that believes in the rights of women and the LGBTQ community, that believes in basic diversity, equity, and inclusion for all people. You think that they aren't going to see us as someone to be muscled, or a state to be muscled and pushed around, and we're going to turn our skies over to them? You know, don't just take my word for this. Lloyd Axworthy, the former Foreign Affairs Minister, who played a big role for Canada on the international stage in the Chrétien years, he called out Carney on this. He said that even discussing this golden missile scheme with the United States was an absolute betrayal of Canada's values. The values that Canada built over the years of creating multilateral agreements to lessen the threats by super powerful nations. And Axworthy was also alluding to the fact that this isn't the first time the Americans have pushed us around on missile defense. Remember Ronald Reagan's Star Wars scheme in the 1980s? Canada said no. After 9/11, when the United States had been attacked on their own soil, they were looking to set up the Strategic Defense Initiative to protect their skies. And they were feeling pretty tender there, pretty touchy, because they'd been attacked on their own soil. And Canada said no. This is our long-standing policy. So to change that policy now is a very, very serious step. And, you know I'm going to hear it from people. I've heard it a lot already. Every time I raise questions about decisions made by Mark Carney, is trust Mark Carney, Charlie. Don't undermine him. He's playing three-dimensional chess. Oh, he's just playing Trump for the long game. Ever get the thought, just for a second, that Maga's playing the long game with us? That it's about the constant pressure, the chipping away, the making us concede and give up ground. And every time we give up ground, they take that ground. And so to even pretend, I'm not saying that the Prime Minister is going to spend $175 billion. I know he's not going to. But to even pretend that we are open to a discussion about turning over the sovereignty of our skies to Maga is conceding ground that we must never, ever, ever concede. So, I need you to send a message to the Prime Minister. Give him some backbone. Give him some encouragement. Say, Prime Minister, we got your back. Canada is willing to do its part. We are going to stand firm. We will stand up. We will take the hits that are necessary, but we will never, ever let our skies be turned over to Maga. You do not have a mandate to negotiate this with the United States. You do not go there. Send him that message. He needs to hear it. Because if he's playing the long game and he thinks he's going to win on this, we're losing. So the message to the Prime Minister, Mark Carney's office, you can email him at mark.carney, C-A-R-N-E-Y, at parle.gc.ca. That's mark.carney at parle.gc.ca. Send him a message from anywhere in the world. We appreciate your support, fellow resistors. If you're in Canada, you can send him a letter, and it doesn't even cost you a stamp, right? Prime Minister Mark Carney, office, 80 Wellington Street, Ottawa, Ontario, K1A 0A2. So, from here at the Resistance Network, we thank you. Keep sending us, posting those messages every day. We read them, we go through them. We're getting ideas from people all the time. We are going to keep kicking at the darkness until it bleeds daylight. I know we're talking about some heavy stuff here, but I have hope. I know that if we hold our ground, we're going to get through this, and we need to do this together. So this is why we're counting on you. Thank you for supporting us. Please subscribe. Help us to build this network. And for everyone here at Meidas Canada, to our friends all over the globe, thank you, merci, and miigwech. Hey, fellow resistors, Charlie Angus here, Meidas Canada Network. We want to thank you for your support, but we're asking you to make sure you subscribe to Meidas Canada Network. Once you're on the YouTube page, just hit subscribe. It's that simple. If you want to read what we're doing, follow Charlie Angus Resistance Substack. And if you want to help get us out into the communities, to host the town halls, we're a super small team. We could use your support. If you want to make an extra contribution, just contact us at info@charlieangus.ca. We're counting on you. We're going to do this together. Thanks so much, my friends.